All right, so I am going to do my absolute best to show you how to get started with this project. And I'm kind of improvising a little bit. I have my cell phone camera propped, so hopefully it doesn't fall. And I am not taking as much care with the planning of this as I want you to. But I'm just kind of going through in case the instructions aren't perfectly clear exactly how I want you to do this, how this is supposed to be done. So I have a piece of really thick cardstock as my base. I don't have any foam board here at home. If you can't get your hands on some foam board, a really thick piece of cardboard or cardstock would be fine. We just want to make sure that it is strong enough to support the cardstock that we are going to be taping to it. So just a regular old sheet of paper is not going to work, unfortunately. This video is for my online students, but I'm probably going to be sharing it with my online class as well. I do have these supplies on campus and we'll be providing my on-campus class with the supplies. For any of my online students, if you're close by, you are more than welcome to come and get supplies from me as well so that you're not having to purchase these. First, obviously, you've got to pick a function and you need to pick an interval. And then when you are ready to draw this on your foam board, we're going to be working, we said, with the function is most likely going to be a first quadrant function. It doesn't have to be. It would probably be easier if it was. You can get creative and do whatever you want. But if the piece I pick is in the first quadrant, when I rotate it around the x-axis, that's going to make the reflection be in the fourth quadrant. So really all I need is for my graph to be in the first and the fourth quadrant. So I'm going to do just something really simple. I am going to just do the y equals x squared graph. And I'm just going to do it like from 0 to 2. But I'm going to stretch this out quite a bit on the x-axis. So I'm going to say 2 goes all the way out to here, which means, well, actually, that would be 0. So 1 would be here. So 0, 1, 2. And I know I'm going to have to go up to 4. How you scale this is completely up to you, but you need to be really careful about how big your cardstock is. You need to make sure that all of the circles that you're going to cut you will be able to make with this cardstock. Most of the cardstock that you're going to buy, now at a craft store you might be able to find bigger cardstock, but most of the cardstock that you're going to be able to buy at a pretty cheap price is going to be like 8.5 by 11 regular paper size. So the biggest circle you're going to be able to make is going to have a radius of 5.5 because that would use our full length of paper. In order to go all the way up and all the way down would use the full 11. So I don't want to go more than 5.5 up, which is why I'm only going out to 2, because that will go up 4. You can definitely go more. It just depends on how you scale this. So that's going to be 4 up there. And I have included a rubric on the handout so you can see exactly how you're going to be graded. And part of the neatness and the scaling is definitely going to be part of the grade. So you don't just want to freehand all this and just do it all in 30 minutes right before it's due. We want to make this as accurate as possible. Now, I understand you might have to play with the scaling a little bit because of the paper. So there's just my best estimate here at the y equals x squared graph. So I'm going to do this from 0 to 2. So I'm going to just make my two-dimensional region there. and then I'm going to have to reflect it to start my, as best I can, to do my solid of revolution. So I'm also going to go down 4, and hopefully you can see this. And when we draw this just on paper, we say give it these little arcs to just kind of pretend that it looks circular. Well, what we're doing in this project is we're actually going to make real circles so that it looks circular. So I'm going to split this 0 to 2 interval up into 20 sections. So from 0 to 2, split into 20 sections. You can do the math if you want. I've got a distance of 2 split into 20 sections. They're all going to be about 1/10 of a unit long. So my first is going to be at 1/10 and 2/10 and 3/10 and so on. So here at 1/10, this is how I'm going to do it. So I've got a compass. I think the best way to do it is just to use your compass and measure that distance. Now, my first one is really, really short, and my compass, unfortunately, doesn't go that small. This one at least doesn't. So you might just need to freehand it, or just don't start at 0. Go from 1 to 3 and just scale your y-axis differently. So let me do a different one. Let me show you how to do it maybe at 1. So when we did this last semester, we figured out the easiest way to do the radius is to put the point of your compass in the center and then go out to the edge of your graph. So that's measuring how big this particular circle needs to be. All right, and then I'm going to set my compass down, and I'm going to pull in my colored cardstock, and I am going to draw a straight line. And this is going to be the bottom of the circle. And I'm going to set the pointy part of my compass right in the middle. And I'm going to draw a circle, a half circle, semicircle, using the settings I just found from the measurement on my graph to make my semicircle. Now the best way to connect this, we're going to cut this out, so I also have a piece of scissors. You need a little flap on the bottom of your circle. So we also said we're going to draw in this little flap to help us connect it. So we kind of angle it in a little bit. And I'm sorry my paper is so dark. I didn't think about the paper being dark and that having an effect on it. So we've got our semicircle, and we also have this little flap to help us connect it to our cardstock. So I'm just going to come in and cut this out. So I'm just cutting out my semicircle, and I'm also including my little flap to connect it. And we try to keep this as accurate as possible. It will make a huge difference in the quality of your project. And then I've got this little half circle, but I'm going to fold it where I have my flap as best I can. Fold it on your flap. Now this is the one that I measured right at 1. So this is the one that's going to be taped right at 1. And it should hopefully connect from the top to the bottom. because this is actually a volume of revolution. We only measured from one side to the other, which is the radius. And you can either put some glue there on the bottom side of your flap, or we had some other students who found that the glue really wasn't sticking very well, and they preferred to do some taping. And that would be fine as well. If you do tape, when you do these circles, we found it was easier to start with the smaller circles first, so it didn't cover up the larger pieces of the graph that we still had to work with. So we want to make sure it goes from one piece of the graph to the next piece of the graph, and it was perfectly vertical. I might have to use my pencil to hold it in place while I get my tape ready. So that is one of the slices that we can kind of envision when we are doing volumes of revolution using our disc method. Our disc method is based on the idea that we are slicing this solid into lots and lots and lots of little discs, and adding the volume of those individual discs back together. So there is one of them. So in this project, we're going to be doing lots and lots and lots of them. So you would then go to the next spot and measure the next one. And you could either measure it with a ruler. Sometimes these measurements are going to be so small it might hard to be get it really accurate with a ruler. So we also found that this was just as easy to do with the compass. So just set your compass, point at the x-axis, and then adjust the other side so that it was touching your graph. And then once you have that set, we will go over here. The smaller circles, you could use 2 pieces of paper and get at least 2 or more circles out of them. And I'll get another circle, or another semicircle. Obviously, for real volumes of revolution, they're going to go 360 degrees, but we're just looking at a flat piece of paper. So we're seeing it come out at us. Add your little flap to connect it with and cut it out. So I'm just going to do one more. And then we fold on the flap, and we will attach it. Again, make sure that it is touching. And it's perfectly vertical. Then we will connect it. And you can use tape, or you can use glue. And actually, it looks like with the tape, it might be better to do the larger ones first, to start on the right-hand side and work your way to the left. It all depends on what side your flaps are going to be on. So I've got my flaps on the left, whatever side your flaps are on, you want to start on the other side. So I've got my flaps on my left, so it'd probably be easier for me to do my right hand circles because it was hard for me to tape that flap down because of this other one was in the way. But I still got it. I just did it on the end. So once you get all of these on there, we need to have 20 of them on there. It turns out really, really nice. So this is one that a student from last semester did that was really impressive. This is one of the best ones that we had. All of the circles were nice and evenly spaced and really, really accurate to the graph. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any more questions, certainly just ask. And again, if you're close by the school and you would like some supplies, that way you don't have to purchase any, I've got tons of supplies and I'd be happy to give you some supplies.